This is a treadmill, and these are my Achilles tendons. And in today's episode, I'm reacting to a professional breakdown of my own run form, not someone else's, my own. Ever wonder if your stride is secretly sabotaging your performance? Well, I know I did, so I finally decided to figure out what was going on. Will this blow my mind and possibly yours? I don't know. Let's see. So I'm in front of Central Performance Physio, where I will be getting my running assessment done, my gait assessment done. Now, as I've looked at videos of me running, I realized that I am overstriding. I'm a bit lumpy, I'm a bit hunched forward, and I'm like, okay, I need to correct this the best way possible. Let me see, obviously, an expert. Let me see if this is causing any Achilles issues or any other issues that may be happening, inefficiencies, and maybe I can run more efficient and better. In this episode, I'm gonna go over and you will learn the silent flaws in your stride. You will spot them. You'll make small but powerful form techniques and tweaks, how to do that, how to build up your training routine, some drills, and bonus, a 6-month training plan to increase your cadence and optimize your cadence so that you can run with better form. I have that shortly. If you want a sneak peek, just hit up the QR code right here or the link in the show notes if you're listening to the audio player, or the video description, that's why I'm pointing down, if you want to get a link to that right now, but I'll talk more about that in a bit. So who's the guy helping me? Meet Ben Liddy. He's the head of running physiotherapist at Central Performance Physiotherapy in Surrey Hills, Sydney, Australia, where I live right now. I'm obviously American, but been here 13 years. He's a master physio, sports scientist, and level 4 world athletics coach, and hopefully is going to help me improve my run form. So any guesses what he'll say?
Shouldn't think about it, right?
No, I just want you to run. All right, you can just press that stop button for me, man. Beautiful.
The warm-up's done. Now the real fun. The slow motion freeze frame critique begins from the professional. I was a bit nervous, but I was just like, yeah, I think I'm pretty good.
We're going to look through this from a couple of different lenses. So first one is just as an overall assessment, okay? What you're doing well, what you can potentially improve upon, and then can we link any of that back to, causative factors for your Achilles? The reality of the situation is that we can't definitively say, that this is going to be causing your Achilles issues, because there's so many potential reasons why someone can develop like a tendon type injury. Improper scheduling of recovery and overdoing things is the most likely cause of why we get injured. Okay. So what we're looking for here, okay, is the difference between your highest point in the air and your lowest point in the air, okay? Running, the ultimate goal is to move as fast forward as possible.
So we fire up the iPad to dissect my form. The physio's first comment: apparently I do have some vertical oscillation. Is it too much? Is it too little? He checks how high I bounce. He's writing some stuff. Hopefully you can see that. I've got that on the screen. And how straight my legs are or bent, whether I'm crossing over the midline. Turns out that my arms swing a bit wide, so I flail a bit and I flick my wrist. And that actually is something that I knew I did, but I became super conscious right after. And then he also mentions that training load plays a huge role in tendon health. So technique alone might not solve my Achilles woes, but I think this was still a good analysis, and it's going to help me with other things that we'll get into shortly. So cue my face when I realized my arms are basically doing the helicopter, just swinging around. I had no idea I swung out so wide. I kind of knew I did, but I didn't think it was a big deal. And then as he said it, and as I watched the replay, I was like, yeah, it's unnecessary wasted that I'm flicking my left wrist. I've been doing this for years too. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing that. And it's like a weird mirror version of yourself that you never met. Like looking at this, like, hold on, I have to feel like I know that person, but I really don't.
The main issues: forward trunk lean and foot placement.
So we dive into the big question right here. Am I overstriding myself into an Achilles strain? The tendinopathies that I have, the issues that I have.
The thing to note also with you here, okay, and this is, I guess, relevant to what we're talking about with your Achilles and stuff, is that you are landing mostly on your heel first. People that land on their heel first are more loading up through their knee and hip area, okay? People that land more on their midfoot or forefoot are loading up through their calf and Achilles area. So for you, if you'd come in and you were very much like a midfoot, forefoot runner, and you told me the same thing, you had chronic Achilles issues, you tried everything, you'd done all the strength training, nothing was getting better, then we may look at changing how you run, okay? But you're landing more on your heel, okay? So for me to then say, hey, let's try and change you and get you to more of a midfoot, forefoot, knowing that that's going to put more pressure on your calf and Achilles, that would be silly to do that.
When I run faster, I'm definitely like midfoot.
Yes, and
Obviously.
that's natural, okay? So as we start to get onto the track and, you know, we're running at like, you know, speeds at 1500 meter pace plus, you naturally get pushed more onto your mid and forefoot, okay? There's no like people out there that really sprint that are landing heel first. So the faster we go, typically the more we're going to go onto that foot.
It turns out I'm not landing too far out front, so I'm not overstriding too much, creating that braking effect. I'm not doing that. Also, my trunk leans forward, maybe from tight hips. And Ben points out that not everyone must be a midfoot striker.
At the US Olympic trials many, probably 5 to 10 years ago now, the 10,000, they had a look at people's foot placement on the track, okay? And these are the best guys in the US, you know, all of them have run under 29 minutes. And the difference was massive. There's heel strikers, there's midfoot, there's forefoot. Okay, so at the top level, there's a huge variation, okay? So people, I think, get caught up in thinking that they have to be this midfoot, forefoot strike, but there's plenty of elite runners out there that are still landing on their heels, okay?
But for me, stepping a bit closer to the center of gravity could reduce constant jarring, so getting my foot landing under my hips and my center of gravity, or even slightly behind it, so I'm pushing off and I'm not braking. I feel kind of relieved and a bit annoyed, combination of both. So I'm relieved that it's fixable, but I'm annoyed I have to unlearn years of this habit. But if I want that 1% edge, the 1% better runner, let's go, as my son says, let's go. He says that a lot. He watches way too much YouTube. If you suspect that you are an overstrider, maybe watch some slow-mo footage of yourself on a treadmill, or if you can get someone to ride a bike next to you, or maybe you could put a phone up while you run past it at a moderately easy or slightly fast pace, and you can see where you're at. And the truth, it might shock you, but as I say, knowledge is power.
Mobility check. Tight hips are revealed.
So next we do a mobility test. This is a super fun leg drop off the bed sort of test.
Just hold the right leg, okay, and then let this left leg drop off here, okay? Okay, so, I mean, I'm sure this has been an issue for a long time, okay, but, you know, you are very tight through your hips, okay, so.
Hey, you know what's funny? I saw you, 7-8 years ago?
Yeah.
I am so much more mobile in my hips than when I saw you 7-8 years ago.
So ideally, you know, we're wanting to see you come down close to the bed, okay, and we can see that that's not going to happen.
The verdict from him, I'm still tight. My hips are screaming, not today! If I can't extend my hip, I'm forced into that forward trunk lean, which might worsen my overstride. I'm leaning forward and then I'm overstriding and I'm braking. I'm exaggerating it, but even slight, you know, variations, 0.5%, 1% over the course of a marathon, which I'm doing very shortly, is going to wreak havoc on me. So I know I've improved from 8 years ago, but apparently it's not enough. And Ben's honest opinion is that some folks are genetically stiff. They have stiff and tighter ligaments and tendons, so they're not as flexible. But he says there's a limit. You don't want to be too stiff. You also don't want to be too flexible. So people with hypermobility, EDS, that's not good. So you want to kind of be in this like range of not too stiff, not too mobile, not too flexible. But every bit helps. I need to be probably more in the middle. So I'll keep working on that. And it's an everyday thing, 1% twice a day, rolling out with the spiky ball and also doing all my stretching and all that type of stuff and strengthening. Sometimes we focus on foot strike, but if your hips are locked up, all that fancy shoe technology in the world, the super shoes, they cannot fix your running mechanics. And a quick aside, if you want a simple way to overhaul your own form, don't forget my free 6-month cadence guide. Yes, some runners don't need to boost their steps per minute, but it's worked absolute wonders for me. You'll get my weekly email newsletter with tips, tools, and tactics on everything from run form tweaks to mental mindset shifts, because speed starts between your ears. Go check that out. The QR code here, the link in the video description below, or if you're listening to the audio podcast, go in the show notes, open up your podcast player device, and you can click that link to get it. It's for free. Let's get into
drills and form adjustments.
We move on to the classic foot pickup drill. I call it classic, but it's like I've never really done this before. It's kind of like a high knees, but not really. I'd say it's like it's actually a drill that I do called knee overs, and I'm actually doing that while I'm running. So instead of letting my feet swing out in front, I'm supposed to lift them up under my hips. So it's really getting my my knees high and doing it right now and making sure that I'm creating like kind of a little semicircle of sorts. And it's like I'm trying to kick my glutes from below in a way, but not over exaggerating because I'm running at half marathon pace. So I don't want to be doing heel kicks while I'm running. It's a waste of energy. It doesn't look good. It's also not efficient. At first it feels a bit strange, but then we filmed the side by side from what I did in the beginning to when he said, just lift your legs up, lift your lower leg up. And my trunk looks way more upright and stable, less flailing. I actually was making sure I wasn't flicking the wrist and making sure that I was running with my shoulders relaxed and, going straight versus the twist, the helicopter. And who knew how much a small cue and shift would make. And I've been doing this for about 2 months now. And I'm going to say that I don't twist as much. And I also don't flick my wrist. I don't flick my wrist at all anymore. I stopped that. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm always lifting up my legs. I got a higher cadence DJ mix in my headphones that I listen to most of the time. That's a 1% higher cadence, which you can download that again at the link below right now. You can download to get a higher optimal cadence. We'll have a whole 6-month guide on that. So this is where the graphics really help, and drawing a line from my foot to my hip to see how the changes are. And I've really got a huge aha moment when he did that for me. And it leads to the next section, takeaways and training factors. So some real talk here, keeping it a buck, 100, as the Gen Z kids say. Form tweaks alone can't magically cure my Achilles troubles and my issues. There's still training load, strength work, and rest. That little detail that often runners ignore. But the physio does say if I land more efficiently, so understriding under my hip and not overstriding, I'll stress my calves and Achilles less over time, especially on longer runs. Who else hates hearing rest more out there? It's like, rest more. Yeah, I know. Everyone says rest more, but it is very true. It's not a quick fix, but layering all the small 1% improvements, 1% better runner, that's what I'm pointing at. Technique, mobility, strength, rest, recovery, running form, thinking about your running form. It might be the difference between finishing healthy or limping to the finish line or even start line. Don't want to limp to the start line. So wrapping it all up. After all that, I feel both validated and challenged. I was like a bit torn. I'll be focusing on those foot lift drills, general plyometric and form drills, watching my trunk angle, so no twisting, that flick, making sure I don't do that, and possibly doing all this and cutting down stress on my Achilles. Even as a run coach, I totally need another coach's input, and that's the beauty of running. We're always learning. So like I said, I'm always researching, talking to experts and experimenting on myself. It's what I do. I live it, I breathe it, just to help you out. So if you're chasing that extra 1% or you're trying not to get injured, give your run form a second look, go to get a run form analysis. It's not cheap, but it's worth it. You don't have to get them all the time. You can do a couple sessions with them and then kind of go away for a few months, 6 months, a year, then come back and see where you're at, your Achilles and your best times. They might thank you. Thanks for watching. So this is where I leave you. This is kind of the one last step. Overstriding or heel striking has struck you or you're stuck in it. You might love my free increase your run cadence package, because this is the one thing that I'm doing that he didn't talk about. And I know that it works. When I increase my run cadence, so I'm actually increasing another 1% from 180 steps per minute to 182-ish, 184-ish, actually about 2%. And I know that that forces me to lift up my leg and not overstride and not heel strike. So there's a debate on whether you need it or not. But again, in my experience, it works for me and it does help my Achilles issues, just even that little bit. So this guide includes a 6-month training plan, plus a quick start overview and the tools and tactics that you need so you can start right now. And when you grab it, you'll also join my weekly email newsletter packed with even more running form tips, strength routines, mental hacks to keep you injury free and super motivated. I go deep sometimes to make you think about running in different ways. So if you want to run your best, go hit that link. It's the QR code here or below or in the show notes. You want more about running form? Go to this video below to find out more and become a better runner.